It's show time. Hey, all. It's been a while since I have been here with you all. I took a pause. I took a pause during the holidays. I really needed it, didn't realize that I needed it. But it was amazing and necessary. And I'm so excited to be back. Happy New Year. I hope you all had a fantastic New Year. I know it's been a little bit. Um, Strange, and that's okay. We could ride the wave. We will definitely always get through those bumpy times. So if you're here with us today, definitely let us know. You know that I like these podcasts, live podcasts, to be interactive. So if you have questions for myself or our guest today, feel free to put them in the comments, and I will keep an eye on those. So it's always amazing to be here with you guys on another episode of Real Talk, where I get to have real life, raw conversations with amazing people from my circles and communities who have overcome challenges and created amazing. Today, I am super excited to have Ryann Dowdy as our guest. Ryann is an entrepreneur, sales strategist, and community builder. Earlier this year, Ryann was stressed and overwhelmed. In one community, she was a thought leader. In another, she was surrounded by potential clients. Neither space felt safe to share her experiences. She wound up on the floor in her shower in tears, which I could relate to that. She felt like no one understood. She wanted to create a safe space to come as you are while finding advice, feedback, and friendship. She had no idea it would create such powerful conversations and connections, but it confirmed she was on the right track to creating a space unlike any other. And I am so excited to welcome Ryann to the show today. Welcome, Ryann.
Hi, Grace. How are you?
Great. I'm super excited to be back. You're my first guest in the new year, and I'm
Mhm.
really excited to have this conversation because,
Mhm.
girl, so much of what you talk about resonates with me.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. And it's funny, you're the first person to read that new bio out loud. And I was like, whew, I wasn't prepared for that. Like I've read it on paper, but you're the first one to read it out loud. So
I love the vulnerability because I
thank
can
you.
really relate to the points you touched on.
Hmm.
We don't talk about those things,
No, we try like hell not to, actually.
right? Right? The math. So tell me a little bit, about you while you're going through
Mhm.
those moments and days. Like, what did it feel like, and how did you step out of it?
Yeah. Really great question. So, it's been a wild and crazy ride. Really my entire career, but the past year has probably been the most transformational for me. And what I thought I had was a business problem, right? Like I thought I had a business strategy problem. Like that day that I was crying on the floor in my shower, I very clearly would have told you that something was broken in my business. And what I really needed to learn, Grace, that not something was broken inside of me, but that I wasn't being true to myself.
Mm,
Right. And so for me, my stress was like, I was looking for, there was something outside of me, right? Like that's what I was looking for. There's something external that I need. I need another sales strategy. I need another business strategy. Maybe it's our offer. Maybe it's our avatar. Maybe it's this, maybe it's that. When really it was me, right? Like it was always me, and it was me really living and being true to myself. And so how did I get out of it? Coaching, a lot of coaching, and a lot of really difficult conversations, if I'm honest. When you go on this journey to become the truest version of yourself, you have to admit not only to yourself, but to some of the people closest to you that the things that you've been doing or saying or whatever just really don't feel in alignment anymore. And it's hard, but powerful, and empowering, but hard.
I you just hit a point for me. Before I got on, I said, "Hey, I took a pause. I didn't realize I needed a pause." But just like you said,
Mhm,
I was burnt out. Didn't realize it, and I had,
mhm,
like you said, like same thing. Like, is it something wrong with me with the business? I have to do a different strategy, but it wasn't. It was internal
mhm.
too.
Yeah.
I wasn't being true to myself and doing the things that I enjoy. I was trying to keep up with all of these different strategies that weren't feeling good to me.
Right. Right. But then we're marketed to in such a way that we're like, well, if I don't do it, I won't be successful.
Right. Right. Yes. And so that's where I was at. And ironically, when I started staffing 23 years ago,
Just
I had
crazy.
the same thing happen. I was trying to keep up with everything and do all the strategy calls and the strategy, and I was miserable.
Mm-hmm.
And so I stepped back and I said, you know what? I really love this. I love what I'm doing. I'm going to focus on the relationships.
Yeah.
I'm going to focus on what I enjoy doing. I enjoy helping people. And I feel like this is the same thing happening to me now on the coaching side. It's like I was trying to be something I'm not, and I
Mm-hmm.
got to step back.
Yeah.
I got to
And
step
it's so hard as like high performers, as doers, like I find stepping back to be harder than anything else, right? Like the whole slowing down to speed up concept, like fundamentally I get it, but it's so hard because
right.
we're just programmed to do. And you know that you've had a very long and very successful career. And sometimes you just got to get in and get your hands dirty and do the things. But the hard work is sometimes not done when we are doing. It's when we're really digging deep and kind of pulling all that stuff out. So we can figure out where to go next.
Absolutely. This is it ironic that we're having this conversation
There
today?
is no such thing as coincidence,
No,
my
there's no
friend.
coincidence. So thank you for the validation, sister.
You're welcome.
I was like, you know what? I'm stopping. I'm slowing down. I'm going to step back. I'm going to go back to basics, which is the conversations and the relationships.
Amen.
And what I love is that you do teach
Yeah.
relationship-based sales approaches. So
do.
tell me a little bit about that, because in sales, it's always about the numbers and the grind, and that's exhausting.
Amen. So yeah, I mean, human to human connection is, one of my core values as a salesperson. And again, it goes back to the same idea that we're marketed to, that like this strategy is the only strategy that works. We're also marketed to in a way where we feel like automation and churn and burn, and it's all a numbers game. And, that is kind of not, it's just kind of indoctrinated into us. So for me, what it means is, it is about focusing. I always tell our clients to like stop focus on selling things and start focusing on building relationships. And it's exactly what you're learning right now, right? Like if you just focus on the relationship, you focus on the other person on the other side of the phone call, the email, the DM, the StreamYard, like wherever they are, if you just focus on that person and getting to know them and build a relationship, sales will naturally happen.
Yeah.
And so the numbers are important. Like I'm not naive enough to believe like, like I haven't gone that woo just yet. Or it's just like, but it is really getting into a space where it's how can I serve this person? How can I help this person? And knowing that it always comes back tenfold, even if it doesn't come back in the way that we think it will.
Absolutely. And laugh at me. I went back to the basics yesterday and I pulled out my call sheet from like 20 years ago. And I said, you know what? I really need connection. I'm just going to make phone calls. I'm just going to make phone calls and see how people are doing. And I couldn't believe how much I got from that.
Yeah.
Again, it's not about the bottom line in those calls, but from the connections. And like you said, then the bottom line comes when we're in that space of connecting and serving.
Yes.
Oh, gosh.
I love it. I love that you picked up the phone. I've actually gone back to basics the past like 6 weeks too. And I've talked to more people in the past 6 weeks than I swear I did in the last year. And I've made more money. I've had more fun. And I feel like I've made a bigger impact. Like I walk away feeling like I've poured into people, but I also feel poured into,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And something that I love, I'm following you on Instagram and I love your posts. I believe one thing you said was everything works.
Amen.
So it just doesn't have to be social media presence. It doesn't just have to be the phone, but whatever feels good to you, whatever you're doing authentically is going to work.
Mm-hmm. I think it's authentically, and then it's what we do consistently, right? It's what we do consistently. Like, again, I find this in online marketing world that people tell you there's one way to do things, and there is no one way to do anything. No. It is the thing that you will consistently do that is in alignment with you, right? So if like live video is not your jam, that doesn't mean that you're, destined for failure in your online business, right? Like there's a woman, I recently was a guest on a podcast of a woman, her name is Denise. She's not shown her face on the internet in like 17 years.
Wow.
But she has an extremely successful business and an extremely successful podcast, right? So it's however you can authentically show up in a way that's important to you, but what you will do consistently, right? So I use live video as an example because, everybody is like, oh, you have to use live video. And it's like, if that doesn't feel true to you, then don't use live video, because you trying to BS live video is no better or worse than you just not doing it at all, right? So however, if you would prefer written content because that's your jam and you want to write emails and write social media content, that's fine. Again, if podcasting is your superpower, do that, but do what feels good to you and what you can show up and do consistently. Because when you try to force yourself to do something that you hate, there's no way in the world you're going to do it consistently.
100 to every word you just said.
Yeah.
And I fell into the trap of, okay, you have to do this and you have to do that. And that's not true. And I also know so many incredible, business people, entrepreneurs, coaches who don't have a social media presence and they're super busy.
Of course.
But they're, like you said, they're consistent in what they're doing. And then there's also that social currency when you are providing great service.
Right.
They're going to tell a friend and another person's going to tell another friend.
And I would argue that almost happens faster.
Yes.
Right? Than trying to convert cold traffic, cold people who don't know you into paying paying clients, right? To just go out. And I will tell you, my first probably 6 figures in my business, this was obviously pre-pandemic back in 2019. I think 2018, 2019, my first probably 6 figures came from in-person networking, from speaking for free, from going to events, from meeting people. And then I got referrals from that ecosystem. So I wound up working with people who I had never met before, but it was because I was introduced to those people by someone who I had met networking. So I think it's, there's just that, like you said, there's that social currency. There's that proof of like, oh, well, so-and-so recommended them. Yes. And so I never underestimate, like you said, the people who don't have online presences. I mean, I love social media. I love the idea of being able to grow a business without ever leaving your house, all those things. But if that does not feel true to you and you would rather go out and meet people, that's still an extremely viable way. Like business existed before the internet.
Absolutely. Actually, yesterday I was on the calls. I got an invitation to go speak at the Rotary Club. And I was like, yes,
of course.
So, I mean, and I miss that in-person presence.
Right.
And I love how now, like, you're creating this community.
Yes.
For women. I like I mentioned earlier, wow, I really needed that, 20 plus years ago when I started my entrepreneurial journey, because I did it like there, I don't know, maybe there was, but I didn't have those around me. And I did it, I felt like it was on my own. It was tough.
Yeah.
So tell me about the power of finding a supportive community.
Sure.
Power in that.
So I think again, this is all so new. Like this is a total reinvention. I am in this really, like, one of our core values with Be in the Room is reinvention. And I'm in this reinvention space right now where I am realizing that just because I'm good at something doesn't mean that that's what I have to do. So, and I share that with you just because I don't know the answer to the question exactly. Like, I just know that I'm following my gut. And I just was kept hearing women talk about that idea of feeling lonely and feeling alone and feeling like nobody understood them. And I was like, what do you mean? Like women, and I feel like we've made such advancements as women as far as in the workplace and career and money and all this stuff, but like we're still somewhat stuck personally, right? We still don't really know our roles personally. Like once you become the female breadwinner, like what's your role in the house, right? What's your role as mom? What's your role as wife? What's your role as friend, as sister, as whatever? So for me, it's one of those things is there's no coincidences, and you can only hear so many people say so many things so many times. So you're like, okay, we need to fix this problem. And that's my personality. Like, we're just going to fix the problem. And so we're going to create a community of women where the common thread is, just the rebellion against the status quo, whatever that means in the season of life that you're in. And even some days just having that, like yesterday it happened, a member of my team did something that just, I was so excited about. And I was like, I wanted to share it. And it was just cool to have a community to go into and be like, can I just tell you that my team is really badass? And like, they're so amazing. And it feels so good to feel so supported. And I felt like up until, 6 weeks ago, I didn't really have that space to go say that where I would be supported. Right.
I love that, because recently I did find my, communities to join. And once I joined those communities and I felt safe, there were some I didn't feel safe with, like you mentioned. I think sometimes when we're a leader, there's certain things, you don't feel or environments, like you said, that you don't feel safe in. But I did find these communities where I felt safe, and to go in there and be vulnerable and to actually share and celebrate, because we're not taught to do that. I was like, if you celebrated, like, you're stuck up, like, who do you
Right.
think you are?
Right.
But to be embraced in these communities has really helped me expand and grow and be open to share.
Yeah. And one of the things that's really important to me in the community that we're creating right now, Grace, is that it's not just business and it's not just personal, it's both. And I don't know about you, you can tell me about, but I found that I could go join a business community, right? There's plenty of business communities, co-ed, men, women. I mean, there's plenty of them. And then I found that there, for women, at least for me, my kids are little. My kids are almost 5 and 2.5. That like, oh, we are in it right now. But it's like, well, we can go do play dates and we can play bunco, or we can go to this networking event. But like, where do we get to go be both those things? Like, where can I be mom and a business owner? Like, where can I be a badass and be super vulnerable? Where can I share my wins without being, stuck up, right? And so where can we go? Like, again, one of our core values we created is both and, right? This is not a space of either or, it's both and. And as the lines blur between business and personal, from us as business owners, it's also blurring, where we go to get support.
Well, I agree with you. It's not a this or that. It's both and, because I am a mother and I raised a family while I was running, this, multi-million-dollar business that wasn't easy.
So badass.
And I raised my kids, and I was in the classroom, and I was, and so we can't have it all at different times. And you're right. There really isn't. I always felt guilty for being here and guilty for being there. Right. And now, like you said, it's like, F the status quo, whatever that may mean, because we can be both. Like, we can be successful career women and mothers and.
But I think so much of it is judgment of ourselves, if I'm honest. Like, as much as, like, I'm damn the man. Like, I stand behind that 100%. But I think some of it is judgment of ourselves, right? Like, this whole idea of having it all, it's sometimes we just have to modify what having it all means, right? Like, for me, having it all mean my kids go to daycare. They don't have to, but they do. My kids go to daycare, but I still feel like I have it all, even though they're not home with me all day, because I'm here with them every morning. I get to send them off to school. Like, they come home around like 3:30 or 4. We get to spend a lot of time together. And in the summer, I try not to work on Friday afternoons. And so I try to pick them up from school early and do something fun. And like, to me, that is my version of having it all. Right. But I think sometimes we're like, okay, well, if I'm not the Pinterest perfect mom where I do all these things, and then that's like, then I'm not doing enough. And I'm like, I don't care. Like, here are the store-bought cookies for the Valentine's Day party. And that is enough for me. So I think sometimes it's self-judgment and expectations of ourselves as much as it is the external forces.
You're totally right. And I've been working on that so much, and I've come a long way. What I didn't realize recently, that I still had those perfectionism pictures, not realizing it. And now my goal for 2022 is F it. Yes. I'm just going to say,
good for you. Does it feel so good to say that?
Look it. It's like the perfectionism is so deep in. Again, like, I've done a lot of work and I've overcome a lot of shit, and I'm like, okay, I don't care if this is that, but I didn't realize, like, I still have those tendencies.
Well, you grew up in a man's world, babe. You grew a staffing agency in a man's world.
I know. And yeah, so now I'm just like, fuck it.
Good for you. And you're going to have like the best year of your life with that attitude.
Girl, we're going to stay in touch. But you're right. It's my idealism, my idealistic thinking, where it has to be this way, and the perfectionism. And if it's not this way, and the overachieving to prove that I am worthy.
I know. I had a conversation with a woman yesterday too, that if we're not climbing, we're like doing it wrong, right? Like, if it's not, and I think, again, a lot of that is marketing, especially in the entrepreneur land, right? Like, if $1 million business is not your goal, you're selling yourself short. It's like, for some people, it's not their goal, and that's okay. Like, I have a girlfriend who is brilliant, investment wealth manager, super smart, worked in hedge funds in Boston, like, killed it. And she wants to have a really small boutique firm
Mhm.
where her profit margins are through the roof
That's right.
and she can be a mom. And she's like, I can work, 15, 20 hours a week. My profit margins are high enough that I can invest the cash, and she's actually the one who said to me, which I think really, I hate to say gave me permission, but sometimes we need permission to really think through what my goals were, that like oftentimes the smaller business isn't really taking home that much less money than the larger business. Right. She's like, if there, and the profitability from a $15 million business to a $5 million business isn't really that different because what it takes to run the $15 million business.
Have you ever heard of that book, Rework?
No.
Okay, it's on my bookshelf.
Okay.
I read that book,
Rework.
Rework. And for our audience, if you're watching, this is a great book. I don't know why I'm echoing, but because I had that mentality, the bigger business, the more. And I read that book, Rework, and they talked about just that. It doesn't have to be this huge company. It could be, and there's these examples of, 2-person companies killing it.
Right.
And so when I read that book, probably more than 5 years ago, then that's when I started to downsize, but not downsize with lack in mind,
Right.
downsizing with abundance in mind, because
Yep.
it doesn't have to be this. And it worked amazing for me. And I had more fun, and I love that you got to that point.
Right.
For us to be successful, it doesn't have to be a $15 million business. We don't have to have 100 employees.
Right. I have to find the happy medium though, because I found that creating employment actually is something I really enjoy. And I would have never thought that as an employee, like when I left, because I didn't like managing people. So when I left the corporate world and became an entrepreneur, I never really anticipated being a manager again. But so I have a team right now. There's 4 of them, like 5 of us all day. And I just really love that they love their work.
Mhm.
They have a lot of freedom and a lot of flexibility. So I have to find that the happy medium in that, like, how do we run a lean, mean machine where we're super profitable? And maybe it's even in a secondary business or some level of investment. But I do love creating employment, especially in a way that empowers people. Not all of my team, but a lot of my team has littles. Like I have one gal on my team who's pregnant right now, and being able to give them freedom and flexibility is really exciting and empowering to me. So I haven't quite figured the piece out yet, but I didn't anticipate that when I became an entrepreneur. I didn't anticipate that at all, because I was like, no employees, no people, no management. But I actually really do find a lot of fulfillment in that.
For sure. And I do too. Like with my team, when they're like the same thing, they have different things going on. And first of all, I love to collaborate. I don't enjoy working by myself.
Agreed.
But I love when they're like, you know what, I'm so grateful for you because I get to, partner with you and do this other thing. And again, you're giving them opportunity, and they learn from us too.
Yes.
As women entrepreneurs, they're seeing that. And I think that's very helpful. Which brings me to my question. I know that you were in corporate for some time.
Yeah.
What motivated you to become an entrepreneur?
So it's kind of funny. It was never really on my roadmap to do that. Like I spent 15 years in sales. I felt like because I was in control of my income, entrepreneurship never really appealed to me. And even when I knew that the career path that I was on, I was the director of sales for a digital advertising agency. My son was, a baby at the time, maybe 6 months. He's the one who's almost 5. And I just knew that I was really unsettled. I was like, this is not what God put me on this planet to do. Like, I can't do this for the next 35 years. And I actually thought it was going to be like an industry change. Like even when I knew that I wasn't happy, I still didn't go looking for entrepreneurship. I thought like, maybe it's just a different industry. I've been in advertising and marketing for forever. Maybe I just need to shake it up a little bit. And it was actually a girlfriend of mine was launching a kind of an online community and a course. And I was watching her do that. And I was like, that's really interesting. Because to me, entrepreneurship, again, having worked with small businesses, meant like brick and mortar store, like products. It never, like the whole idea of an expert business or an information business just never really made a lot of sense to me. It just didn't occur to me. So once I started learning about online entrepreneurship and expert businesses and how I could use my skill set to become profitable, that's really where it came from. But it was just this feeling of, yeah, like I know that I am meant for more. I don't know what more is yet, but I know that I am meant for that. And I just kind of went looking and networking and started watching and asking questions. And this is where we landed.
So it sounds like you just like once we have a thought, the other pieces start coming, the information comes for us to take our next steps.
Isn't that crazy how that works, right?
It feels like a natural progression. I know that's how it was for me as well.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
got to a point where I'm like, okay, I've been doing this for the staffing for so, and I'm still doing it, but I didn't feel as fulfilled. And
Right.
part of staffing is coaching. And same thing, I saw this online, like I didn't realize like this is something you could do as a business.
Right.
It just unfolded the way it was meant to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I'm learning, that everything unfolds the way it's meant. Like you said, there's no coincidence. We're not having this conversation today out of the blue.
No.
It's not a
No.
coincidence. It's a validation for me, Ryann.
I'm happy to validate you anytime you need, Grace.
Oh, I love it. So, how long have you been in the entrepreneurial space?
So it's funny. It's like from when I had the idea to like when I started making money, because those are two different dates.
Right.
So 2018 is when I really learned about online entrepreneurship, started playing. And then I finally left my full-time job in August of 2019.
Wow, that's brave. That takes courage.
Yeah.
And how have things changed? Well, I know things have changed a lot for all of us,
Yeah.
but in the entrepreneurial journey, how have things changed over the last few months, the last few years since you started?
Yeah. So my business, I mean, I've reiterated several times, what has changed, what hasn't changed is the answer. So I started, it's actually kind of funny. If you go back to 2018, we launched the business. The name of the business was Life Uncensored. And I really was looking to do like career and life coaching for women in their 20s. And it actually came out of my corporate career. I worked in marketing. And so we worked with a lot of young people. And I used to just be really frustrated and pissed off at the difference between the way young men and young women presented themselves professionally. I was like, why are we not equipping young women with the professional like skills that they need? This is bad. Like, this is why the wage gap exists, right? So it started there. And then I, learned some things about that industry, but ultimately wound up finally establishing myself as an entrepreneur teaching sales. And I was teaching sales to brand new entrepreneurs who were in similar situations, leaving their corporate jobs. So like our kind of our tagline was, we help high achieving women leave their 9-to-5 and build businesses. So I did that for about 2 years. And then in that, my business coach and I wound up starting a second business in partnership. So we started a business called Social Sellers Academy. So I basically spent all of 2021 building a business called Social Sellers Academy, where we train sales teams for online entrepreneurs. So people that are leveraging social media as their primary sales tool. And it was just in Q4 of this year or last year where I realized like, I'm good at this and this is good and this is fun, but it's just not my heart. And so that's when I had to make a really tough decision and have a really tough conversation about, this is not what I want to do forever. And so now we're working on building a community of women who are just really badass and want connection and collaboration and all of those things. So it has changed dramatically. I feel like I have changed dramatically. I feel like, entrepreneurship is just such a crazy personal development journey, if you will. And, but the number one thing, it's all come back to relationships, like to pull it full circle for you, like everything. So I will tell you, we launched Be in the Room in November. Well, it was the end of November, early December. We have 27 members of that community, but it was because I've spent the last 3 years building relationships, right? Like I didn't start over. I just kind of changed paths. But you still take all the people with you, right? When you change paths. So I'd already had a community of people that I had relationships with. And I think that's the reason we've been so successful so quickly, is because of the relationships that I have focused on building over the past few years.
I love how you said that. It's like, you're just doing a shift, and it's not a change. It is a change, but you're taking all that energy with you, all that effort, all the relationships, and it's building on. And we're constantly changing. I mean, I know even for myself in the entrepreneurial journey in both businesses, it's constantly changing. And it doesn't mean that I'm starting over. It just means I'm learning and pivoting. And like you said, being true to myself, because sometimes you realize that the things you're doing are not the things you enjoy, and that's okay.
Yes.
We're still putting in our bucket because we've been committed and consistent.
Right.
And the bucket's overflowing. It's just going down a different route.
No, and it's so true. And I think we give ourselves, especially as women, we give ourselves such a hard time for wanting to change our minds. We're like, oh, I don't want to do that. What will people think? I've worked so hard on this. I don't want to start over. You're never really starting over, right? You get to take it all with you on that next iteration. And so sometimes it's just the skills, it's the experience, it's the lessons learned. Sometimes it is the community and the audience, just depending on what it looks like. But this, that's why we've chosen reinvention as one of our core values with Be in the Room, because this whole idea of you should choose a profession at the age of 18 and then do it until you die is stupid.
Oh gosh, I tell my son that. Like, he came up to me and he's like, "Mom, I don't know what I want to do." I said, "You don't have to."
No.
18. I don't know what I want to do.
No. And it's going to change. Like, you can feel so passionate and so in love with something right now, and a year from now you could hate it.
Yes, and that's okay. And I want to emphasize that, for our audience, like, it's okay, even if we've done something for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and you don't feel it anymore. It's okay. We can have more than one love, more than one passion. What is that? What does Marie Forleo call it? Multi-passionate entrepreneur, or it's like, we don't have to focus on one thing. I think we're dynamic individuals, and we're going to have different loves and likes throughout our life. And it's okay to try different things. And the business can look different too. It doesn't have to look the same.
And then it's also okay to change your mind and go back.
Yes.
Right? Like, I recently had a cup of coffee with a woman who built an extremely successful business, took on a business partner, things went south. She wound up just kind of a mess, but she just took a job recently. And she was like, I had so much drama around taking a job, because what it meant, did it mean that I failed? Did it mean that I couldn't figure it out? Like, what did it mean about me? And she was like, but I just, I love it. I love being part of a team again. Like, I feel like $1 million because I don't have all the stress and the pressure and everything else. And she was like, it feels so good, but it took me probably 2 years to even consider the idea of getting a job, because I was so worried about it, it looking like I failed. And I'm like, yeah, but it's okay to go back too. Like, I did it. It was fun. And now I'm going to go do something else.
Yeah. And it's okay. It's funny. I was telling Mike over the holidays, like, I want to go work at Pete's Coffee.
Yes. I know I got offered a job last week. Some guy was like, "Are you sure you don't want a job?" And I was like, "No, I don't." And then I asked my husband later, I'm like, "Do I?" I'm like, "No, I don't want a job."
Well, on that pause, I was going through, I had all this stuff come up, and I had to, kind of reflect. And I'm like, do I, I think I want a job. And I really enjoy being an entrepreneur. I was just in a place where there was doing some things that weren't serving me. And we can, like you said, we have that right to change our mind and to go back. And if I want a job, I'll take a job. And it goes back to being authentic and true to ourselves.
Right.
And the self-judgment too. Because anytime I get triggered, it's because I'm telling a story to myself about myself that's not true.
Amen.
So what is your definition of success these days?
Ooh, that's a really great question. Having fun more often than you're not.
Yes.
I think it's irresponsible to believe that everything is fun. Because even running a business, as much fun as we have, there's still crap you have to do in the business that is not fun, right? Like, every time I have to log into something and remember, I'm like, no, stop it. But as long as most days, you're having more fun than you're not. And I think, again, especially as high achieving women, we just have a tendency to forget to have fun. Even this morning, my kids, we were dancing around in the kitchen, and I was like, I can't remember the last time I did this. I can't remember the last time I just had fun. So I think success is having fun more often than you're not, because, again, we still have to eat our vegetables and pay our bills and do those things. But as long as you're having fun most of the time, you're in good shape.
And anyone who knows me knows I love that answer, because I've been making an effort to incorporate more fun the last few years. And when we're having fun, we're feeling good. I feel like we attract more. So yes, success is about how you feel and having fun and just being in that flow.
Yes.
Being in that place where it just feels good. So there's something that you wrote in social media that I loved. You said, when we hate, we can't create.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah. So I think it's very interesting. I told myself for a very long time I wasn't creative, right? I'm like, I'm not creative. But it was because my creative isn't in the form of art. My creation is the form of words, or in the form of inspiration, or in the form of, creating community. And so, but whenever we are in this space of doing things that we hate, we can't create. You can't create content, you can't create joy, you can't create love, you can't create connection if you hate what you're doing. So for me, if you hate your job, if there's a part of your business you hate, if there's somebody you work with you hate, you cannot create connection and love and any of the good things that you just described, right? Fun and flow and any of that. Like you can't do it.
No.
It's impossible.
And so if you're in a situation, well, we always have a choice, but let's say you're in a situation in your job and right now you're there and you hate it. What's something you can do to kind of shift that to help you get more creative or where you can create?
So it was so interesting when I was working full time and building my business on the side. I had asked my coach a similar question, like, how do I not just totally disconnect from my job? Like, while I build this, how do I do that? And she gave me the advice to start viewing my job as an investor in my business.
Oh, nice. That's a great reframe.
And she was like, it's just investing in your business. It's paying your bills while you grow your business. Your job is an investor. And when you can look at it that way, there's more gratitude than resentment, right? Because it's like, well, you're investing in me. You're paying my bills while I grow this thing. So yeah, if you are in a job that you hate, or you're doing something that you hate and you feel like you can't make a change immediately because of finances or whatever, how can you reframe it in a way where, yeah, it is an investor? Like, maybe even if you're just looking to get a different job, maybe you're not trying to be an entrepreneur, but you're just looking for a better opportunity. It's this opportunity is investing in me while I find my next opportunity.
That's a beautiful reframe.
I thought so too. It was really helpful for me.
Yeah, no, I love that. Reframes have definitely helped me. That's a really good one. So for our audience that's watching, you've given us so many incredible nuggets.
Thank you.
What's one thing you'll leave us with? Someone's, interested to step into the entrepreneurial world. What's one piece of advice that you can give them?
The more people you talk to, the more money you will make. Period. And a story.
Yeah, that's true. 100%. 100%. Those connections.
Yeah.
It has been amazing. I could keep
so
going
fun, Grace.
on and on with you, Ryann.
So fun.
Yes, so fun. And definitely love to have you on again in the future. There's so much we can talk about, so many beautiful nuggets. So for those that are watching that would love to connect with you, how can they find you?
So we are on Instagram at Ryann Dowdy Official. We are also on TikTok at Ryann Dowdy Official. I am Ryann with 2 N's, Dowdy on LinkedIn and Facebook. So you could connect with me on any of those places on social media. Beintheroom.org is our website for Be in the Room, but social media is a great place to connect as well.
Beautiful. And I'll also have that information in the links when we upload the podcast and on this video once we get it up back on Facebook again. So thank you so much for all of you that are watching. Thank you for the replay. I just want to read a couple of the comments. Maysoon said, thank you, Ryann and Grace, for the valuable information. You're very welcome. And Mario said, smaller realistic goals are more fulfilling. Yes, I could see that as well. So Ryann, thank you so much for being with us today. I appreciate you. And thank you all who are watching. We wish you a fabulous day. And if you enjoyed this podcast, make sure to share because sharing is caring. You never know who in your network may want to watch. All right, guys. You're welcome. Have a great day. Hang in there, Ryann. I'm going to stay with you.